then. So, after 133 episodes, which equates to about 50 hours if you include the theatrical release, we've come to the end of the Clone Wars. And with me today is Mr. Mark Newbold, Paul Naylor, and Matt Booker to have a little bit of a chat and just to kind of decompress after the climactic end to season 7. So, gents, how do we all feel about it?
I'm impressed that you know there's 133 episodes and 50 hours of footage for a start. That's good. That means you've done some research. Excellent.
Yeah, I did a little bit of math beforehand, and it might be a little bit above or below because some episodes are 27 minutes and some episodes are 24 minutes, but that's a good average, I reckon. It probably equates to about that, so I'm going to stick with those numbers.
A lot of footage.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Star Wars.
It's the Star Wars we never thought we'd get, isn't it? Whoever thought back then that we'd be getting a Star Wars TV show, let alone one that had finished, 12 years after it started?
Yeah. I remember the excitement of seeing that first picture from San Diego with the silhouette of Ahsoka going, oh my God, what's this? And I printed it out and I put it up at work and be like, what's that? It's a new Star Wars cartoon.
Yeah.
Mental.
And the quality of the animation as it developed over the years, when you compare it to that first cinematic release, can't compare it. It's so much better now.
Yeah. The bulk of assets they sort of attained and grew and, could use, recolor, reskin. Just insane.
I mean, it would be one of those fun exercises, I suppose, for for Lucasfilm to go back and take that theatrical release and see if they could re-render it in the latest models and painting and stuff. You could kind of see that would be a thing that maybe GL would do, but obviously in the new era of Disney, it's kind of close the door.
Too much money.
Exactly, too much money. Yeah. But it's got to be said that the production values of this last season has been absolutely outstanding, has it not?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. I mean, I don't know how much they're spending. We've talked about this on the site and the show before, but I think they were spending sort of $1.5 million on an episode of Clone Wars when George was running it, and Rebels was about 400,000. So, but then it's not apples; it's apples and oranges because the technology had moved on, and what was high-end tech then becomes off-the-shelf tech now, and it's not a comparable figure. So, but goodness knows what they spent on this. I can't imagine they'd spent crazy money, but that being said, it looks like they spent crazy money. The quality was fantastic.
When you look at the lighting and stuff that guys like Keith Kellogg have ended up doing, and just mental, absolutely mental. That whole Maul Ahsoka fight was just gorgeous. And then, did you all see the footage of Ray Park fighting that other girl? Wow.
Yeah, that was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because they tried to incorporate the straight mocap kind of data, but they kind of found out it kind of didn't quite work with the aesthetic of the actual animation. So then had to go back and kind of mix it up and kind of almost like match animate to what Ray was doing and stuff like that, which is quite interesting. So, because I could imagine, because there's a certain kind of movement, isn't there? There's a certain kind of like way that they all move in this series. So it doesn't
light feet, aren't they? And
very light fleets. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So therefore, it's not necessarily going to kind of like work if you start adding a mocap kind of like fight halfway through. But it's great for
jumping up the landing and thudding down. It just doesn't happen in the way they work, does it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Kudos to involving Ray in it as well, because got him into Solo, and obviously we've got Sam Witwer in Solo as well. Yeah, it just sort of like comes full circle with this as well. So it's just nice for him to actually be physically involved.
Yeah. It is the dream team, isn't it, now for Maul? And it's a shame that they either didn't consider doing it earlier, certainly on Rebels, or just the thought didn't occur, or it just wasn't the right time, or, I suppose there's other factors. But you kind of think now, having seen what they did with this and how good it was, I mean, you can totally, like you say, you can totally tell. Now when you watch that clip that Matt was on about, you can totally see in the finished footage, the finished episode, that's totally Ray Park.
During that final arc, we see he's on Mandalore, he gets captured by the clones and Ahsoka, and then Ahsoka has to free him. So do we think that she did that lightly?
Last resort.
But a smart move, though, wasn't it? I mean, he was the distraction, wasn't it? I mean, you watched the declassified... No, sorry, get it right. The download episode where they ask Filoni about, there's a sequence where Ahsoka's fighting Maul and she kicks him out the window. He goes out the window, you see the blade go through the wall and everything. And she leans down, takes a breath and catches it, just centers herself before she goes out. And they were like, what was that all about? And Filoni says, she has to be totally at the top of the game to keep up with him, because she outsmarts him. And then going back to your point about releasing him, it's like, well, I ain't giving him his double-ended lightsaber because he'll just chop everything to bits, but I will let him out there to cause a distraction so I can get that ship and leave. And of course that goes belly up, doesn't it? So it's a tactical move, I think.
Where do you think he goes from here?
It's just, where is he in the underworld at this point? That's a question.
The earlier episode, you see members of the Crimson Dawn, don't you, via holo transmission. So he's got to be kind of like in league with them already. But I suppose it's a question of actually where he is. Is he still working his way in, or is he on top? So,
does the Sith Lord need to work his way in? That's a question. I mean, he's a former Sith. He's not a Darth anymore. He's Maul, but he's still got all the powers. Yeah. You wonder how he would play the game in terms of working his way up the ladder of something like Crimson Dawn. Would he just walk in the door and go, I'll have that, you get out?
Well, that's the parallel that you've got, isn't it? You've got Maul, who was a former Sith, and you've got Ahsoka, who was a former Jedi. Yeah. So you've got two sort of people with no affiliation to anybody, but it was quite clear that their decisions in life, he was certainly one end of the spectrum and she was the other. It doesn't matter whether they were part of a bigger thing or not.
Yeah, because I mean, she has that conversation with the Jedi Masters, and I think Mace Windu says to her, are you rejoining the Order? And she says, no, not yet. Whereas you kind of get with Maul that notion that he's not wanting to possibly rejoin Sidious. He just basically wants to screw up his plans and just became a pain in the arse for him, I guess.
Bitter ex-employee. Yeah.
It's totally that. You can imagine his leavers employees kind of like interview he'd have, he could list all the grievances,
general grievances, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He didn't get furloughed.
Yeah.
There's plenty of scope. Like you say, it's probably 13 years between Clone Wars and Rebels in timeline.
Yeah.
So you could quite easily have some form of a storyline set between the two.
Yeah.
This totally sets it up, doesn't it? This episode, especially the final moments of victory and death, further in. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, it's hard to tell how much further in that is, because you are seeing like snowtroopers and you're seeing sort of...
And sandtroopers and stuff. Why are sandtroopers in the snow?
Yeah. But you know what I mean? You're seeing OT kind of gear. But you don't know how far into the timeline that is. The Vader looked quite slim. I still think of Prowse in the armor,
Yeah.
And sometimes it's
that's more the Clone Wars aesthetic, though, to be honest.
That's the thing, because I was looking at the TKs, the Stormtroopers, and they're not quite as stylized as the Rebels Stormtroopers, which kind of was very much more Ralph McQuarrie-esque.
Yeah.
But they're still not quite right. So it's like, is that a visual cue, or is that just the style of the animation? Because, like you said, Vader, he kind of actually reminded me more of the vintage Kenner figure, who's
very
very
matchstick. I think the Vader's just a design language and not meant to tell you what time he was in. Well, if you read the comics, the modern Disney ones, and you read the the legacy stuff that they did with Dark Horse, Vader literally after that went hunting for Jedi.
It's the Jedi Purge, isn't it? I mean, they make that, break the eras down. That's the Purge era, isn't it? So
I reckon that could be fairly soon after, because if he knows Ahsoka's out there, and he can probably feel her, they had a pretty close connection. She feels when in that episode, she felt all the stuff going on with Order 66. She had that whole sort of breakdown in her brain and premonition and seeing it all.
That's a good point, Matt. But that's a question I've got, actually. When that Order 66 happened in the previous episode in Shattered, they cut to Maul, and it felt to me like Maul was sensing what was going on, and it was the way it was edited felt like he was sending it to her, like he was making sure she got it. That was my read. Not uniquely that she was getting it. He was amplifying it or something or other. Just the way they edited it between the two of them.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that as such, but obviously I think they just had just because he was in that kind of Iron Maiden type box.
Yeah,
you haven't really got much to go on in terms of emotion, so you've only really got and the eye, basically, the window to the soul, and are going to emote a lot more than anything else. But I mean, it's good. It's a good shout. I mean, for one thing that I thought or wondered was, if you listen to the music at the start of the episode, it's not exactly the funeral, kind of like Padme's funeral march, but it's very close. So you kind of wonder,
enough, isn't it? Yeah.
You kind of wonder, is that actually this is when this has happened? So
that's what I think. Yeah, I think that the events in episode 12 kick off right at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So
I wondered that. I couldn't quite make it out, and the review I've just posted on the site. Is the Clone Wars technically still taking place? Because the end of the Clone Wars is when Sidious says to the Nemoidian, whichever one it was, turn off all the to Anakin, turn off all the battle droids. Yeah. As soon as the battle droids are deactivated, that's the end of the Clone Wars technically. So I couldn't quite place where, but that's a good point. That music cue might be the
what it is. It's after Kenobi's and Anakin's kind of battle.
Yeah.
Because it would have been interesting to kind of either see or get an idea if Ahsoka could actually kind of feel that conflict, and possibly like when when Anakin's kind of being kind of put into the suit and that kind of pain, because you kind of think he's so angry and there's so much pain, you would have thought he would have been kind of like radiating all this kind of like emotion through the Force. So you would have thought she would have picked up on it. At that point, Vader knows that she's still alive, do we? I mean, he picks up a lightsaber. Do we think that he just...
Don't know. If you look at what we've seen in the films of other Force users, with Han and Leia and stuff, and Luke and all the rest of it, the people with those connections can feel each other, births, deaths, whatever. So I think he knows she's still alive in some respect. I think he can still sense she's out there.
Mm.
I just wonder, I mean, it's... When the original Star Wars came out and we were kids, the inference was, or it was pretty clearly stated, that really the only Jedi that were around was like Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke, but not knowing it, Vader, the Emperor. There wasn't very much, was there? And as the years have gone on, canon has built and built and built and built, and you learn that there are actually some monstrously big galaxies. So there was loads of Jedi that survived. But you just wonder, and obviously Vader would go out on the hunt, and the Inquisitors would go out on the hunt. Now from Rebels and all the other people that are seeking down Jedi and the Emperor. Are they that easy to sense? It's almost like the Puck in Mandalorian, which was weird for me because it made it so easy to be a bounty hunter, because you got the Puck and it's like, oh, they're over there, and you just go and follow it. So it's like, is it looking forward? Yeah, it's one thing I was a bit squishy about, but
MacGuffin-y.
Yeah, very much. It's cool though. It's cool. And calling it a puck as well, Filoni. You said, Mark, about Filoni being a hockey fan. Calling it a puck was a great idea.
Completely.
But, but going after a Jedi, I don't know. With him picking up the saber, you look at it in black and white, and it's like, well, that's Ahsoka's saber. Anakin and Vader are now two separate people. Vader, we know for years and years, doesn't consider himself to be anything to do with Anakin Skywalker. That's an old name, long forgotten sort of thing. But clearly, internally, he's still got to chew these things over. It's part of the angst of the character, isn't it? So, if he picks up that saber, thinking, it's only a couple of episodes ago we saw him give her the two sabers in the, in the box. Be interesting to see or figure it out. And I again say, watch the last ever download, I guess, on StarWars.com, because I'm sure they'll give you a time frame for that final sequence, like they did with the end of Rebels with Ahsoka and Sabine.
Yeah, because that was 5 years or something.
5 years after Jedi. Wasn't it?
I mean, I suppose if we look at what Luke did in between Jedi and the Last Jedi, he closed himself off to the Force. Now, and also you look at Rey and Kylo, and they're able to kind of close each other off at certain points. So I suppose whether or not the way that Ahsoka could kind of close her presence off in the Force without necessarily sacrificing her Force abilities. I mean,
well, that's a great point. And here's a possible link, because Filoni loves his links. Maybe Luke learns how to shut himself off from the Force from the way Ahsoka did it, because she can't be the only one that just has to just tune out, because the Emperor and Vader will be actively hunting for Jedi. So That's a really good shout, actually. It's probably quite possible. Because it depends on where Ahsoka goes as well, because if she's laying really low on the outer rim, and I mean, Phantom Menace, I think there's 30 years between Phantom Menace and A New Hope, but, Shmi sort of says, the Republic doesn't exist out here. So in terms of the Force, could a Force user on, that end of the galaxy and that end of the galaxy sense each other, or is there some sort of proximity thing? I don't know. I mean, I'll be fascinated to find out if that's the way they want to go with it.
The way I would go with it is that you've got that 13 years to play with, and right at the end of the Clone Wars, you've now clearly defined Vader as part of that lineage. Anakin's gone, you've got Vader. I would do a series, I'd probably call it 66, and do it based on hunting down Jedi, introduce a load of new Jedi characters that we are currently not aware of, that become the core of that series. Yeah. Then you've got Vader dipping in and out, but then there'll be other people hunting the Jedi as well. Yeah. That is a bit like the what were the ones in the in Rebels?
Inquisitors.
Inquisitors.
Yeah. In the comics as well.
And that would be the way I'd go with that, because you've got endless things you could do with that. And then you've got Vader at the core of it to keep the fans happy. Now, that could either be animated or it could be a live series.
Yeah.
Whichever way they want to go.
I mean, judging by how cool, no pun intended, the OT era looked in that Clone Wars animated style, I'd be quite happy for an animated series.
Me too. Me too.
Depends on the costs. If it's cheaper to make The Mandalorian than it is to make a Rebels episode, a Clone Wars episode.
Yeah.
I don't know what the balance of cash is with that, but the way they've got the tech now to make Mandalorian just on a studio scale.
Yeah. I could be wrong. I think season 1 of Mando cost 100 million, but that probably includes development costs and everything to get the tech where it is. So you're probably looking at 15 million an episode, I would say, which I think Falcon and Winter Soldier's 25 million an episode. Game of Thrones was 20. It's Lord of the Rings is God knows how much, so it's not on the scheme of things. On the scheme of things, probably not that bad. So
generally, guys, would you be happy if they just kind of season 7 was definitely the end and they don't do any more Clone Wars, or would you want to maybe see how the Clone Wars transitions into the New Order?
I think it's got to transition into something else, because it is the Clone Wars has ended.
Yes,
correct. Yeah, it's a bit like when Smallville was on. Halfway through Smallville, which went on for like 10 seasons, they were talking about when we get to the end, it will stop being called Smallville and it will be called Metropolis. It was a plan they never saw to fruition, but that was kind of something they'd mentioned at a certain juncture where the show would become something else. And it feels like the Clone Wars, like Paul says, call it Order 66 or whatever, Dark Times, Purge, whatever. There's loads of names.
Dark Times.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And just push, George's favourite, wasn't it? Dark Times comic. You could just push on with that storyline, keep a lot of the same characters. You'd be following a lot of those clones now, stormtroopers, and the change-ups there. And you could really see it from lots of different angles. Plus, you get loads of Vader, you get loads of Palpatine as proper, Tommy Cooper, Darth Sidious, and all that stuff. So, I think it could be really good.
If you put Vader at the core of something, then your casual fans will get more out of it as well.
Yeah.
Which is what Disney will dig.
Yeah.
So where do we reckon Rex went then at the end of that end of the episode? Do we think that he went off with Ahsoka first?
Grew his hair out.
His hair out. Because I suppose ultimately he ends up with Wolf and Gregor.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I mean, is it? I suppose it's conceivable, possibly, that he could have gone off to maybe see if he could, I don't know, rescue or kind of convince some of his friends.
Do we think most of the clones became stormtroopers then? They got retrofitted in new armor like they did throughout the Clone Wars. They went from phase 1 to phase 2 armor.
Yeah.
Do you think they then all got stormtrooper armor?
I do.
They had short lifespans, killed off, and then they recruited humans.
Because when we, again, going back to when we were kids, the understanding of what stormtroopers were was that stormtroopers were clones, and Lucasfilm over the years have flip-flopped that many times. There's probably a middle ground now where some garrisons are clones and some garrisons are conscripted, or enlisted rather, and it's like you see in Solo, because the promise of getting out and seeing the galaxy is far more interesting than sitting on a desert planet kicking stones and shooting womp rats and stuff. So there's a thrill of being a part of something bigger, and all the propaganda machine as well, which only gets bigger the further into the Imperial era. There you go.
From what I kind of understood, and this may have been Filoni or somebody else mentioned it in passing, but basically by the time we get to New Hope, the clones have been phased out. That would assume that they stopped producing clones. But the question I have is, why would you pretty much stop producing clones who are kind of like pretty loyal, compared to then having to do this mass kind of like conscription, and you end up with the likes of Han Solo getting conscripted and stuff like that.
Or Finn or Janna.
Exactly.
Bring you down, yeah.
Precisely. All these kind of like people who are clearly got their own identity, whereas obviously the clones are pretty much imprinted and they go through training from day one and they're indoctrinated to do one thing. So it's quite interesting why the Empire decided to leave the clones, because to be fair, you swap the armor over, who's going to know?
Exactly, and from a story point of view, from a plot point of view, I would suggest that's kind of an error, because if you can put Order 66 imprinted into a clone, and you're running the show, you control the Republic or the Empire now, and you control everything that's part of that mechanic. Every mechanism within it. You could put Order 67 to 1,000 if you want, and just completely control them. So I'd say really that's a slight storyline plot cock up, because what you just say is absolutely right. Why would you not breed them?
Yeah, but when did they first say that stormtroopers were humans and conscripts not clones?
It's over the years it's gone up and down and backwards and forwards, hasn't it? I mean, it always, the old poster mags back in the day always said they were clones, that they were the drones of the Empire, they were clones, but then over the years.
Was the mention of them being humanoids not clones before Phantom Menace, before George came up with the prequels? I
honestly don't know. I'd have to look at that. I know Pablo came out not that long ago and said that 50% of the stormtroopers that we watched in the original trilogy were female. So Lucasfilm have come up with all these different ways. We think back to 77, you think of stormtroopers as being classic sort of Aryan, blonde hair, blue-eyed, all look the same kind of thing, So, I don't know. It makes for more interesting storylines, but from a plot point, why wouldn't you just keep cloning them? Because they'll do exactly what you tell them to at the flick of the switch.
Well, it was only in episode 7 when Kylo Ren is having a chat with the gingerhead dude. Yeah. And they're having a chat, and he says, I could always get a clone army. That's the only time I can remember them actually referring to them being anything other than clones at that stage.
That was slightly done as an insult, as a slight, wasn't it, towards the first of the troopers
and the training.
We see in that episode, or in Shattered, the previous episode, like how badly Rex is fighting it.
Oh God,
And you just kind of it's curious, because when you then think about all the other clone commanders who have probably served with their Jedi generals for such a long period of time, and like you take Cody for instance, he just
Cody
he just gets the order and he's just like fire. He doesn't even think. So
that was actually a beautiful scene. That was in episode 11 when you saw his hand quivering and the helmet dropping to the floor. That was spot on. That was That was really cool.
There was a lot of great moments in those last 2 episodes, and like we said, it's an action. The final episode, Victory and Death, is like, it is action. That whole sequence, which reminded me of the beginning of Revenge of the Sith with the ship crashing. I forget the name of it. Invisible Hand, was it? Crashing onto Coruscant. It had a similarity to that.
Yeah. I mean,
do you think that Rex had broken some of his programming a little bit? Maybe.
Well,
felt like it.
Yeah, I think it's got something to do with the fact that he placed that report about fives, and so he's obviously aware that something's gone on.
Wasn't that covered in Lost Missions? That was in Lost Missions, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Touched on.
Yeah, that was to do with fives basically going haywire. Who has repressed that report? Because obviously you see the Camino report. So I'm only theorising, but I'm assuming that the reports created by the Kaminoans, because they're the ones doing their kind of like investigation and trying to figure out what's going on with it, probably report it to Palpatine, who then just kind of like hits Control Delete and shoves it in the trash can, I guess.
I mean, that's another thought about the clones, just going off on an angle. You saying that gets me thinking now, the Kaminoans aren't really a thing by the original trilogy era. Obviously, they weren't created until the prequel, so they can't be. But from a plot point of view, maybe Palpatine was paranoid enough that he thought, I don't want somebody else doing a Cypher Dyas and ordering a clone army behind my back. Yeah. So let's just get rid of the tech. And obviously, the tech's still around for him to do Snoke and all the stuff he does in the sequel trilogy, but mass market cloning's probably a done thing, isn't it? If he's got any sort of paranoia and thinking, I did it, somebody else could do it, the Kaminoans always took the top dollar, didn't they? So
that's a fair one.
He could always put a garrison there like Vader did on Cloud City. There's all sorts of stuff they could do, but just trying to think why they wouldn't do it. You got to think of a good reason why Palpatine wouldn't just order another great big monstrous clone army to just control the galaxy.
A few tweets.
What I really liked about this season, though, I really loved the Bad Batch. I thought that the first 4 episodes were very strong. Wasn't so keen on the second part, 5 through to 8. It was okay, not great. I did like seeing the Palitoy action figures in the background.
Yeah.
That was quite cool. But then all of a sudden, when you get to episode 9, I mean, the hairs on my arms are going up now. When that started with the red writing, well, before that, you've got the Lucasfilm production in green.
Yeah.
And then the music come in proper, the John Williams style music come in, you think, well, these last 4 episodes are going to be something else. And you're right, the last 2 in particular. But I think to a certain extent, the last 4, and you could make that into a film.
Oh, yeah.
That is a film.
Oh, yeah, undoubtedly. I think the way that, that last arc was just kind of like one episode ends and literally the next episode begins, with no newsreel, no kind of like, kind of Tom Kane kind of like voiceover. I mean, and also, especially the last 2 episodes, the pacing and the way they just let everything breathe, you just, don't see that in the Clone Wars normally, because it's like...
you don't see it in animation that much, do you?
Everything's compressed to 22, 24 minutes. So they were able to kind of let that breathe, and it felt a lot more theatrical, and you got a chance to study Ahsoka's kind of reactions and stuff like that, which is just curious. It's just like
it felt, if you watch the Disney gallery with Filoni talking on the Mandalorian thing and about what George taught him about how to make animation. Yeah, it's like, here's the lessons George taught me about visually doing it and how you see the scenes and stuff. Yeah, and it shows so much more maturity in the way that Clone Wars have been made and brought it up to tie into the movie era even more.
I think the success of these last couple of episodes, they're the antithesis of what you got with the Star Wars sequels. These were very, very confined to a very limited number of characters, especially the last 2 episodes. More or less a double header between Maul and Rex and Ahsoka being the other. Yeah, and I think working in those confines, it just made the story richer. You've not got all these sort of plot points going, boo, boo, boo. You just concentrated in the moment, and it made it all the stronger.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you take the end of Revenge of the Sith. The whole of Revenge of the Sith is like the biggest opera drama Star Wars has ever done. Yeah. And even if they can make wonderful visual effects that much better, they'll never get a story that's as big and dramatic as that. Just everything was perfectly set. So the great thing about this was you've got these 2 storylines running parallel, and you've got Revenge of the Sith, which is the grand opera. This is almost like the little folk song. It's like they're not trying to compete. They have a great action sequence at the end, but like you say, Paul, they completely focus it on Ahsoka and Rex and the turn of Order 66 and Maul, but he's out of it fairly quick. So they've really put it down. I suppose look at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and it's Anakin and Obi-Wan, isn't it? But you got Yoda and Palpatine happening, and everything else that's kicking off behind it. I thought it was a decision that they could have gone big, and it would have been great, and we wouldn't have known any different, so we'd have probably loved it. But the fact that they focused on the characters the way they did, I think was really well judged.
Yeah, the character-driven stuff is always way better than the action-packed stuff in Star Wars. It always is. That's why The Mandalorian works.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, really, when you think about it, the Clone Wars series is about Ahsoka, and really it is about Rex. They are kind of like the 2 characters that, I mean, we really get to know in it. I mean, because we already know Anakin, and we know Obi-Wan. We see their kind of friendship develop more, so that makes what happens in Revenge of the Sith even more dramatic. but actually, everything that we see in that first Clone Wars feature film is basically through Ahsoka's perspective, and most of the way through the whole of the Clone Wars, each series is basically from her kind of point of view. If you think about it,
but the whole thing was her and Rex didn't want to kill anybody. They didn't want to kill anybody. Land on the planet, all gone, mate.
Well, that's the thing, because they have that conversation, don't they, halfway through, when Rex is like, "You do realise that they're not pulling their punches. They're trying, they're shooting to kill. So don't worry if you knock a few of them off, in the process of trying to escape, But then you also have that really, emotive moment where he takes his helmet off and he's tearful. He's got a tear running down his eye. So he's clearly, but whilst he says that, he's completely conflicted by the fact that he's actually having to do this. He's having to go up against his brothers, which probably, beyond just kind of like the Camino kind of programming. It's kind of like really built into like the very core of his essence.
Yeah,
so really,
these are my brothers.
Absolutely.
He's served them for all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of shows, like, I guess, how important, like, Ahsoka is to him more than anything. Yeah. If he basically puts Ahsoka in front of like his.
Well, he broke his programming.
Yeah.
When she wiped the chip out, and he was hinting at breaking his program already with him saying he'll take her out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. They've already said to him, "We're going to kill you as well." So it's a fight or flight with him, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's a camaraderie. I think the camaraderie between the clones is something that just kind of develops over time in the trenches, rather than just something that is programmed into. But I get your point. Totally get your point. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the last 8 minutes or so, there's no dialogue. So from the moment that they just they leave the ship, it's just it's all just you've got the kind of the free fall kind of like peril kind of action, but then it's all just kind of like no speaking, and I think sometimes the best stuff in Star Wars is the stuff without the dialogue. I think everything
plays it into you.
What you have got, and Matt just touched on it there, is that Vangelis type music. That
very Vangelis. Oh my god,
type music. Now, if you think Ahsoka is sort of like she's coming to a decision when she drops the saber hilt onto the ground, that music's playing in the background, and that's her pivotal moment. Do I carry on down this path, or do I go another one? The only other time that I can think that music's been used in the films was in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin was sat, thinking, shall I go and help Mace, or should I stay here? And you've got that same sort of music going on there. And that music, to me, evokes pivotal moments.
Yeah.
So you've got Anakin in Sith, and you've got Ahsoka at the end of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
It's a good call. Yeah.
So it's like George always says, it's poetry. It's his way of bringing that back. For me, it's passing the baton. So I would probably engineer some way of bringing Kanan Jarrus into the sequel to this, so that then in turn hands the baton on to Rebels.
Yeah.
But I would definitely go down the Order 66 route. I'd leave Ahsoka to one side. Less is more. We hook back up with her in Rebels. Focus on Vader and his allies, tracking down the remnants of the Jedi. Bring some new characters into it. Make some more money. Bring out some more Black Series.
I think with the K2 series that's coming, and they've announced that Genevieve O'Reilly's in it, I'm wondering if that it'll tie in with the end of Clone Wars, maybe. But the legacy of the show is more Star Wars than I ever thought we'd ever get.
Yeah.
I sat in the room with George Lucas when he said at Revenge of the Sith, "That's it, I'm done with Star Wars, I'm making no more films."
Yeah.
Never in a month of Sundays in all these years that I ever think we'd get any more Star Wars, let alone this much more.
No.
And this quality, richness, and depth of story.
Yeah, when we were all working together prior to Fantha Tracks, there was no even hint that Lucas was going to sell Star Wars to Disney. So as far as we'd come to the end of the road of Star Wars, and everything we were reporting on was fan service for the stuff that existed. And now we've got more Star Wars now than we had 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Double the amount.
more content coming out now than ever before.
Yeah.
And it is next. But
the one thing that
a little pause now.
Yeah. That's the one thing Clone Wars has done, is that Filoni is now so smartly tying things together. So these last 4 episodes tying into Sith, beautiful. You know, we've got Cassian coming. That's going to tie into Rogue One, and all these things are it's all starting to come together. And really, gaps are closing in a good way. Resistance leading up to Force Awakens and all that sort of stuff. You know, but legacy of Clone Wars, I would say, one, it proves animation completely has a place in Star Wars storytelling, because Ewoks and droids when we were kids were great fun, and they're enjoyable, but they were kind of oddities. It was like, well, George didn't know what he wanted to do, but let's do an animation because that holiday special stuff was fun, and it wasn't the level of Clone Wars, which had that 5-year run and then the Disney sale and all that malarkey, and to get a show to come back for a final season the way this has and impress us old farts the way it has, is a treat, because I certainly want more. I want to know what happens next. And I don't think an awful lot immediately happens next with the heroes. I think they do what Ben and Yoda do. They go to ground. I think Bail Organa probably keeps it really on the down low if he wants to keep his head attached to his shoulders, and they play it clever. So it really will just quell for a long time. I think this era immediately is the purge and the building of the construction of an empire, which I think would be fascinating to watch. I really do, and I think there's room for it.
Yeah, no, I think
the other legacy of this, of course, is when you come to watch Revenge of the Sith the next time, you'll have in the back of your mind all these off-screen moments that we've now got running parallel to it. All the Ahsoka, Rex, and more stuff. Yeah. So it will make you view that in a different way. It's a bit like when what's the one with Aziza in it?
Shadow
of the Empire. When Shadows of the Empire came out, and how that changed some of the bits at the start, where you've got the Emperor talking to Vader, and then you've got Caesar just off to the side witnessing all of this. And again, it makes you watch that bit a bit differently the next time you watch it. Yeah. So I like that. I like it when you bring in that sort of Back to the Future 2 sort of idea.
That's a good one.
You've got somebody witnessing it from a different angle, just off kilter. I think it's cool.
It will be curious to see if the season 7 that we received now would have felt the same if it had literally just come out off of the back of season 6.
That's a good question.
Actually, has that time away been able to give Dave Filoni kind of like extra perspective and having that space
completely
and skills?
Yeah. And I think that I mean, because this is like, I think this is one of those series defining arc where basically a lot of people will go back and go, you've got to watch it because like the finale is amazing. And we've had all these amazing other episodes. We had like, all the stuff with
Mortis trilogy.
The Mortis trilogy,
Exactly. You have the Mortis trilogy and even like the Mon Cal arc in season 5 and there's
Into the Void.
Yeah.
When you watch stuff and Filoni and George Lucas, my favourite was Into the Void. And I'm like, I loved it.
See, I was quite hoping that right at the end of the final episode where Ahsoka's kind of looking out at all those kind of like clone helmets and she kind of looks at her lightsaber, but she just throws it over her shoulder and walks off. That sounds like a good point to kind of wrap it up, really, I think.
Yeah.
Just loved all the Clone Wars. You could take all 50 or so hours of it, maybe strip out 10 hours of, the filler episodes and stuff. But overall, just a wonderful show. More than we ever thought we'd ever get. And rich. So rich.
Yeah. One of the strongest endings. Yeah, one of the strongest endings in Star Wars that we've had.